to point out is our median age is right at 25, so 24.8. So we have a very young community here. We have a university in our community, and then we have a military base about 15 minutes away. So we have some unique things about Warrensburg that you'll kind of see as we go through this presentation today. I'm super excited to talk about this topic. This is actually one of my favorite things that I did as a director, is to foster and form these partnerships and collaborations with my community. So let's just start with a big question. Why do these partnerships matter? Why are these things important for your Main Street? I always think of Main Street not just as a revitalization organization, but really a community builder. You, as a Main Street either director or board member or volunteer, have such a unique position within your community to really build community pride. You really can be those cheerleaders for your community and really kind of show people that they should be proud where they live. You know, the downtown district that you're working so hard to make beautiful and relevant, but not just that, but they should just be proud of their whole community. And as you form these partnerships and collaborations, it's really a unique place that you will find yourself in to kind of spread that community pride to everybody that you come across. And partnerships matter because everybody should have input, not just the people that are on your board or that are staff members or that are on your committees. The entire community should have input about what happens in your Main Street district. It's also a great way to cultivate future volunteers, future committee members, future board members. By forming these partnerships and building these partnerships, it really cultivates those volunteers. And as you can see in some of the things that we've done, it's going to inspire future entrepreneurs, either through the kids that you work with or even their parents that you come in touch with. It's really a great opportunity for you as a Main Streeter to really touch all different aspects and people within your community. So obviously, the best way to do these things is to have a plan. So this can either be done when you create your plans at the committee level, at the board level, but you really just need to sit down and have a plan. So look at your Main Street program, what's on your action or work plans, whatever your organization calls them, what kind of things are on those plans? Or have you sat down and identified yearly goals for your organization? What kind of things do you want to accomplish? Just like Ben was talking about for that board retreat planning, it's a great opportunity to sit down and say, what do we want to accomplish next year? Do you have a transformation strategy? Have you went through that process? And if you have, what does that look like? What types of things do you need to accomplish through that transformation strategy? And then what changes does your organization want for your community? Sometimes those are overarching things that you want as an organization. They're not necessarily on a work plan, but maybe you want to just build more community pride. How do you do that? What do you so it's a great idea just to write these down. You can create a whole action plan for it if you want, or it can be more of a loose kind of ideas of like how these things that we have, how do we collaborate with other people based on these action plans, yearly goals, all those types of things. So getting started, you kind of have that list or that action plan of all these kind of, complex ideas, or maybe they're actual events. And so you kind of look at that and you start to think, what makes up the fabric of your community? Every community is different. We all have some commonalities, but everybody has some different things within their community. So kind of sit down, make another list. If you're doing it through an action plan, add to your action plan and just list all the nonprofit organizations you can think of in your community or around your town. What corporations and industries do you have? And list them by name. Everybody has a local school. Do you have any colleges? Do you have junior colleges? Do you have any type of educational type outlets within your community? Don't forget to list your city and your county. Cities often have various committees like arts committees or economic impact committees, so think of those and list those out separately. And then you have other unique resources. Do you have a National Guard or within your community? Do you have churches that are really active in your community? Do you have booster clubs? So try to think of other things within your community that you can list under those unique resources. So you have a couple of lists going now. These are kind of ones that are in our community here in Warrensburg that we identified. A lot of you might have some of these same things: a local United Way, a Big Brothers Big Sisters, Lions Club. So this is how we identified ours. These are some of our big helpers in our community. These are some of our corporates and industries within our community. And as we go through, I'll kind of try to highlight how we used some of these people to get resources or volunteers and things like that. Schools and colleges. Here's great pictures of us that we've used throughout the years, collaborating with our schools, our local elementary schools, and our local university. And city and county. Like I said, don't forget your city and county. They do a lot of great work for you. Make sure you include them in those lists. Here's some pictures of us various times that we've used our city and county for new lighting, helping us with electrical and water at events. This middle picture that has the books on it, that's our historical society, helping us highlight historical significant properties, not just in downtown, but the entire community. Your city and county are helping you with Christmas activities. So don't forget to highlight those and how you guys can collaborate. Here's for us some other unique resources that we had identified. Like I said, we have a National Guard in our community. They're great for volunteers. We have master gardeners within our community. So they've helped us multiple times with plants. The far right picture in this slide is we have a local dance school, and they have all these princess costumes. So they often will come out to our events and festivals dressed up as princesses, which is obviously a great thing for our community. And then churches. You have a big church. The picture at the top was after one of our farm to table events that we needed help with washing dishes, and our local church said, yeah, come on in and use our dishwasher, use our industrial dishwasher, and get that done for yourself. Obviously, your restaurants have that same capacity, but lots of times they don't. You can't just go in a restaurant because they are obviously washing their own dishes. So as you're planning your activities and thinking of all the different things you need to do, just kind of think who else is going to have that capacity to help you within your community. So you kind of have all your lists going. You kind of know, the people that you want to talk to, the people you want to collaborate with. And so how do you get started? So the easiest thing is just to look at your own organization. Who's on your board and committees? Who's in your personal inner circle, meaning yourself? Who do you know in your community personally that can help you with resources for Main Street? And then who's missing? Maybe you need help with a certain project, or you need help getting activities off the ground. So who is missing from that circle? So this is a great opportunity just to kind of sit around and chat about who in the community can be helpful, what organizations can be helpful, and does anybody that's already a part of your Main Street know these people? Do they work with these people? Are they on other committees with these people? Maybe that somebody that works at a certain organization that has a bouncy house. So you can put bouncy house as something you need for an event and work backwards, or you can start with saying, oh, Julie Smith knows the organization that owns the bouncy house. Let's ask her to talk to them. So it's kind of taking all this information and trying to find those connectors. How can we connect? Because if it's a personal ask, people are much more willing to help out than just a cold call. So you kind of are kind of making these connectors on paper so that you can get started. So how can you make all this information benefit your Main Street program? You have all these lists, all this information. How can you turn this into actionable items? So access all the people, businesses, resources I identify, compare those assets, and don't be afraid to make the big ask. I will say when I was here under Julie, this is when this really started to kind of concrete in my mind of not being afraid to make the big ask. And it all started when we had we have an annual fundraiser up here, as a lot of Main Streets do, called Piccadilly. We really were wanting to maximize our profit one year. We were really not wanting to pay for a rental space. So we were trying to think where we could host this event, 250 plus women, sit down dinner. Where can we host this in our community that we can maybe make all the money and not have a rental space? And we actually asked one of our board members to reach out because they had a very close relationship with this business. We asked one of our car dealerships if we could use their showroom floor for our event. And that's a big ask. They're having to clear all their furniture out, all their cars out. We're having this on a Friday night. That's kind of a big deal for a business to say we'll halt business activities for at least a half a day or more for you guys to come in and do this. And we used the whole entire building, and they did that for us for 2 years. So that was a big ask for us. And it kind of showed me as a young person in Main Street that your community is really cheering you on. Your community wants you to be successful. And so don't be afraid to make that big ask of a business or of a person, because everybody wants your community to be better. And so you, like I said, have that great opportunity to just show that you're going to be a good community partner. And don't be the first to speak up, and don't be the first to take action. So if you see a need in your community, sometimes with our organization, we obviously want things to benefit our downtown, but sometimes it's stepping up beside another community partner to be like, we can step up beside you and we can make this happen for our community. So I'm going to talk about a specific example of what we used of a partnership that we had in Warrensburg. And I'm using the school district because everybody has a school in their community. It's a really great place to start. So when I came in 2019, we had a partnership with our school. It was kind of a very, what I would call low-level partnership. They donated tables and chairs to our annual festival, our annual fall festival, and they've been doing that for years and years. But when I started, we really sat down and went through this process of how can we grow this partnership with our schools. And currently, we went from this kind of low-level engagement to now being engaged in all 4 points of our Main Street. And it didn't happen overnight. We kind of started slowly, and I'm going to walk you through that of how it started for us, and maybe hopefully spark some ideas of how you can engage your local school district. So for us, it really started with this event that we started in 2020 called a prom parade. It was one of those things in 2019 that a parent came in and said, hey, I think you guys should do a prom parade. We all get this. People are like, hey, you guys are Main Street, you should do this activity. So we put it in our parking lot when they came in, and we said, great, we'll put it forward to our promotions committee and we'll see what they say. And if they want to do it, then we will start it in 2020. So when we had our annual planning with our promotions committee in 2019, they said, yes, this sounds like a great idea. So we really worked through the process of this prom parade pre-COVID. And then when COVID happened, we kind of obviously put it on pause. But that year, our parents did a parent-led prom in the summer after graduation. And they asked us if we would, do this prom parade since we'd already planned most of it before COVID shut everything down. And we said, absolutely. And that was our first one that we had in downtown in the summer. And it is probably, I would say, our very most successful event that we do each year. And it takes the least amount of planning. It has had just ripple effects. We have, hundreds of people come downtown to watch this parade. We have these students who are excited about being in their downtown. And we have parents that are filling up our restaurants after this event. And so it's really been a win-win-win for us. The social media engagement for this obviously is off the charts. So this is probably one of our most successful kind of, I call them idea bombs that somebody has ever given us. So don't discount those ideas that people share with you. Just make sure to put them in your parking lot and don't just throw them in your yearly calendar. So after that, we kind of built onto our partnership with our school district. And we had a social worker that was familiar with our organization reach out and say, Our elementary school wants to do something with Main Street. And so we sat down with them and brainstormed some ideas. And so this is an elementary school that we work with the fifth grade students. We've been doing this for a couple years now. We sit down with them in January and they help us plan our first movie for our Movie on the Lawn series. It always happens right at the end of school. And so we work with them January through May. And we have a little committee, as you can see in the pictures. And they have an action plan. And every month we go in there and we chat with them. And they kind of get to pick the movie. They kind of learn about nonprofits. They learn about how to plan things. They kind of pick the activities. Do they want to have cornhole this year? Do they want to have a bounce house? Do they want to have food trucks? And the students are responsible for kind of contacting those people and getting everything set up. We take them on the radio if it works out. That's the one picture with our local radio station. We invite the paper out to take their picture at school. It is really, really a great engagement with our community. And these kids learn leadership. They obviously learn work planning. So this is an activity we've done. I know other Main Streets work with their schools as well to do activities. But this is one of our favorites that we do. And as you can see, because it is promoted through the school, we have a really, really large turnout and the kids really, really enjoy it and look forward to it each year. Something else that started happening is once we kind of started forming these partnerships and people in the community and within the school district could see that we were a partner that could be counted on and can provide authentic, real experiences for these students. We had a principal reach out to us and ask if we could brainstorm with them how to get third, fourth, and fifth graders to do a little field trip downtown, and they wanted it to be a learning field trip. So this school is about 3 blocks from our downtown. So we created this thing called the Downtown Experience. We did it for, I think, 2 years. And it basically was they split up into small groups and we gave them a little schedule and they went into 3 or 4 businesses and had like a little one-on-one with those business owners. They learned about small businesses. They learned about entrepreneurship and each business had like a little activity. So the picture in this slide shows them at our local shoe store. They got to learn how to measure feet. Our coffee shop let them kind of create their own hot chocolate drink. So the businesses kind of took it on and made it exciting for the kids. And every business after that said that they had parents, because obviously field trips have parents, that just had maybe never been in their store. People were buying stuff during this experience. So the kids benefited from it and the parents benefited from it. And our downtown businesses got new customers from that. Something else, and I think this is probably one of my favorite things because this is a dual collaboration that we did, not just with our elementary school students, but we have an organization, nonprofit in our community called RISE, and they work with developmentally disabled adults. And so we actually did a collaboration with our local elementary school art teacher and our RISE nonprofit. And we worked with both of them and they had a paint party. So we're the home of Old Drum, man's best friend. So they had a paint party. And so these adults and these kiddos sat down and they kind of had a opportunity to create this dog art that we hung up downtown. And so that to me is like really the pinnacle because you have 2 different groups that you collaborate with and that you partner with, and they come together to create artwork for your downtown. So this was they did it during the school day, and then we hung the art in downtown. So then we were talking about your organization committee, obviously volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. So because of these various collaborations and just working with the school district, we have garnered a lot of volunteers. We have an at-risk high school here that has about 20 to 30 students, and part of their program is they do have to volunteer. So they come out every year for our fall festival setup because their school is located not far from our downtown. And they walk up and they spend a couple hours helping us get set up on the Friday of our event. And then, of course, they come up through the school year to help pull weeds and do all sorts of other things. So high school students are great volunteers. A lot of them have to have that for different uh, groups they're in, or maybe they just want to have volunteerism on their college application. So they are a great way to get volunteers in your community. So all of those kind of core engagements that we really focused on kind of overflowed into kind of this initial engagement that we maybe didn't really expect, but just kind of came out of all this partnership that we were doing with our school district. One thing was they became a sponsor. So now our school district is our top tier sponsor. They're in that top tier of our sponsorship packet. So they give us funding every single year. We've garnered committee members through this process. They are always willing to market through their email distribution at our schools, our events, especially ones focused on kiddos. They've done some poster printing for us for free at the school district. And like I said, they're really great with event logistics. Something else that kind of has happened over the past few years is for our Big Fall Festival. We always had trouble on Sunday getting volunteers. And as soon as we, kind of mentioned that to the school district, they're like, we're going to have all of our sports kids come on Sundays. And so they bring, 30 plus kids, 40 plus kids on a Sunday after our big event and help us take down fencing and pick up trash and get everything downtown looking spick and span. And so then, like I said, the schools are calling us to say, how can we engage with our students? How can we get our students involved? So your school district is a great place to start. This is the next generation for your downtown. These are the next volunteers. These are your next board members. These are all the kids that are going to be investing in your downtown as entrepreneurs. They're going to be the ones in 20 years buying buildings. So it's a great time to get that in their in front of them of what downtown is and what Main Street does and kind of activities that some of them might already be participating in your downtown, and they just don't realize who does it. So schools are a great place to start when you're building your partnership in your collaborators in your community. So other areas in Warrensburg that we identified earlier and that we have leveraged. So we have a university. I know not everybody has that, but some of you might have trade schools or associate schools or community colleges or stuff like that. So University of Central Missouri has been a partner with us for quite a while. And we just wanted to build on that in 2019 and really kind of expand that partnership. And for those of you that did go to state conference, their athletic department was awarded kind of that top award for those collaborators at the state level. We're really proud of our collaboration, but it did take us reaching out to them and kind of some of their key, not just, like president and, that type of stuff, but reaching out to some of those professors and saying, hey, how can we collaborate with you? How can we collaborate with these students? And that kind of steamrolled into some other opportunities just by reaching out to the professors. So obviously, we have an ex officio on our board of directors. We have committee members. Part of our transformation strategies was young adults and young professionals. And so we have made a concerted effort over the years to try to have a student on our board so that we can get that kind of young person's perspective, and especially if it's a student at the university that can kind of help us as we are planning activities to make sure we're kind of hitting that mark for those university students. Obviously, university students are great places for volunteers, special events and class projects. We've worked with multiple classes on everything from organizing our office databases to creating print material for our farmers market. We have a unique opportunity at our university where they create a business through the business school, and they sell products, and they pick a nonprofit every year to award their proceeds to. So that's what the picture with the big check is. We were chosen one semester, and in a semester we received that check for over $4,000. We are in the school usually at least every semester doing presentations in classes, doing presentations to staff members. And obviously, they also are a big donor now through their alumni foundation. And they are a great place to get donations for all sorts of stuff from sanctions, which are like velvet rope type things, for those of you that don't know, that we use for our prom parade. They donate a big portable stage for our fall festival. So great place for resources. If you have a university, a great way to tap into the kiddos in your community that are just there temporarily. And then, of course, all those things, marketing, logistics, we can hang posters up at the university, all sorts of great opportunities at the university level. So obviously we talked about this. You have all sorts of nonprofits in your community. Some of the ways that we partnered with some of ours, just to highlight a few, is we have partnered with our chamber for our local wine walk in our downtown. We have a nonprofit in our community called Standing in the Gap. They come down every Saturday, once a month on a Saturday, and do downtown cleanup year round. They spend a couple hours. We just provide the bags and the gloves and the brooms and stuff. And it's a great program helping the community. And so they have committed once a month cleanup downtown. We worked with our United Way several years ago to revitalize Alley, to activate it. And they worked with us, helped with funding, helped with volunteers. Our Big Brothers Big Sisters we work with quite a bit on different projects, different ways to highlight. We did a rock painting event where we had rock painting at our art walks and at our farmers markets, and then they lined up a flower bed outside of the Big Brothers Big Sisters office with those rocks that we created. So lots of easy things to do. Our animal shelter brings animals out to adopt to our farmers market. Lots of easy things that you can just kind of start to build those partnerships and collaborations. Obviously, like I talked about, your unique resources. So sometimes these are actual things that that these organizations can provide for you, like bounce houses, yard games, kind of that stuff. I already talked about the event space. The picture at the top are hot boxes. I don't know if people are familiar with those, but they are things that you can put food in to keep them warm. Our hospital has hot boxes, and they let us borrow them all the time. And then recently they replaced their hot boxes, and so then they gave us all their old ones. So now we have, I believe, 8 or 10 hot boxes. So when we have our events that require food, we already have those hot boxes ready to go. We don't have to borrow them anymore. So lots of opportunities for to kind of think of those collaborations. We do our fundraisers in the past that have had food. We have always had that 100% donated, and that's a great way to kind of think of those other unique resources, not just restaurants. So your hospitals, they obviously have to cook food all the time. So great places to kind of get to think outside the box, not just our local, like I said, the adults with disabilities, they have a cafe, and so they have food as well. So just when I say think outside the box, just think of everything in your community and maybe what they have to offer. National Guard, we haven't used them for a couple of years for bounce houses, but they do have access to bounce houses. So that's another opportunity. So moral of the story, don't be afraid to make the ask. As you're asking for stuff, like I said, your community really wants to see you succeed. And then as you're working with these organizations, this is the time to educate them about what you do as a Main Street. It's great opportunities to kind of teach them what you're all about. Because I think people, you hear this a lot, they just think you're the fun stuff. And so it's a great opportunity to kind of tell them how you're really here to foster community pride. You're really here to do a lot of other things besides just have events in your downtown. This one, I think, maybe should have been bolded and highlighted, be a team player. So what that means to us at Warrensburg Main Street is that we don't always just sit around and ask others to help us. We volunteer to help them. We reach out to our partners when they're having their fundraisers and say, how can we help? Can we donate something? Do you need help setting up? Can we buy a table? How can we help support you? Because you help support us. So, our Big Brothers Big Sisters is having a scavenger hunt. It's a great opportunity for us to be like, hey, we're going to support you. We're going to get on this scavenger hunt opportunity. If you have the capacity, if you have staff, volunteer to be on a committee for their organization. So it's really giving back to those people that help you. It's really being a true partner in your community. Make sure to say thank you and give credit where credit's due. This is also a big thing, and it really kind of changed our relationship, especially with our city, when we started giving them credit. So, like, this is a perfect post. When we had our 4th of July event, we thanked our Park and Rec for what they provided. We thanked our fire department for what they provided. And then, of course, the Big Brothers Big Sisters and what they provided. So it's really important to give, to say that thank you, and not just in a written note that only the one person says, but put it out there publicly. If you're doing a press release, or if you're on the radio, or if your social media, just put it out there. Who are the people in your community that are really helping you accomplish all these things? It goes a really long way, and it's really, really an important part of the whole fabric of building these partnerships. And then obviously be proud of your community and let it shine through your work. We all have community members that are always the Debbie Downers, but don't feed into that. Be proud of what you guys are accomplishing. Be proud of those relationships. Be proud of your community and let it shine through in everything that you do. So all of these partnerships that we fostered and all of these relationships that we have made have really come to fruition for us in a few ways. We've had a new downtown business. I talked about our RISE organization that helps developmentally disabled adults. So our Main Street owns a building, and we had a national thrift store that rented in our downstairs. And our partner in our RISE, they knew that we were looking for a different renter. And so they came to us with a proposal, and they wanted to open a thrift store to employ their adults that are adults in our community. And it just really worked out. And they came in. And so now we have a thrift store, which was replacing the national thrift store, but now it's local people that are thriving inside there. They're having jobs inside there, but all the money is staying locally as well. And it's going right back into one of our nonprofits. And they came in and they improved the building at their own cost. So it really was a win-win for both of us. These partnerships have allowed us to have a seat at the table. We've been invited to be on various committees at the school district. We've been invited to kind of be at the table for those big discussions at the county and city level because of these success stories. And we've seen just a really, really swell of community support in the past 5 and 6 years. Just really community members rallying around, really wanting to get involved, and wanting to be a part of what was happening in downtown and in Main Street. And then obviously new initiatives come out of all these discussions and all these topics that you're talking about, and ways that you can partner even further with other organizations. So that is my presentation. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. And so, yeah, make sure to pop those into the chat. We have a couple, but I just wanted to have a couple of comments here before I got to those and give you some additional time to pop any questions or comments you may have in the chat. I think a couple of things that I really came away with this presentation, and again, thank you. Loads of experience and wealth of knowledge coming in as we talk about this subject. So I love that organizations see that positive partnerships that Warrensburg Main Street has had with various organizations around the community, and either want to enhance their current partnership and continue to, I mean, your school example, they came to you as opposed to the organization coming and reaching out, and they said, how can we further this relationship? And so that's great. And Jill mentioned this earlier too. Don't be turned off if you saw something in here like, I don't have a college in my town, I don't have any good partnerships, or I don't have X, Y, and Z organization in my community. You know, I just don't have the breadth of partnerships and those collaborations that I can have in my community. That every community is different. the people have in your community are the ones that can make those partnerships and collaborations happen. And so just because the organization, perhaps in name, is different, every community has those organizations that want a better community. And it's figuring out, okay, how do we bring those into the fold of what we're trying to do, and really establish, I think this is an important word for this subject, establish that relationship and cultivate that relationship based off of who we have in our community, what our community is about, and those assets that we have in our community. I did want to ask, have you ever had, and you talked about this a little bit at the beginning about making sure that you're staying with your mission and of the organization, but have you ever had someone want to partner with the organization and you're like, ugh, that really isn't in Main Street's plans, and how did you handle that?
Yeah. So as you establish yourself as a reliable partner and people reach out and say, let's do this event out at Fairground. Can you help us with this? And honestly, we just say we focus on downtown. So a perfect example is our wine walk. When I got here, there was a whole group that was working on this wine walk, lots of community partners on board, Main Street being one of them, but they had planned it for outside of downtown. Mm. And so when I got here in 2019, I said, we can't be a part of this. Mm. If you guys want to move the wine walk to downtown, then absolutely, we will be here, we will help, we will plan, we will do everything we can, but we cannot be a part of this if it's taking place outside of downtown.
Yep, absolutely.
So you always have to think of how to tie it back to downtown. Another example is, I briefly talked about the rock painting that we put the rocks out at Big Brothers Big Sisters. That was somebody reaching out to me saying, we're putting in these new signs at all of our parks. Our Big Brothers Big Sisters office is right. It's in a park, basically. So we're putting out all these new park signs. We know Main Street can deliver. We know that if they say they'll do something, they'll get it done. We want something underneath these park signs, whether it be plants or whatever. And I said, well, that's not downtown, but I can partner with one of my partners and we can do the activity of the decorative rocks in downtown. And then our partner can be the one who kind of places those, works with people to get, stuff finished. So it's trying to find a way to circle it back to downtown if possible. But if it's not, just be honest. And this is our mission. Our mission is to focus on the downtown district. We don't do things outside of that. If we can brainstorm on ways to make it relevant, then we will absolutely be there and we will show up for you. But otherwise, we just can't make that work. And it's also okay to be like, we don't have the capacity to do that right now. Sometimes things ebb and flow, and your organization, through whatever reason, maybe you have a dip in volunteers or you have staff changeovers or whatever. It's okay to be like, we love this idea. We just can't do it right now. We're going to put that in our parking lot, or we're going to talk about it at our board retreat or whatever it is. And it's okay just to be honest, because I know when I was a director, I would much rather somebody say, I can't show up now. I know I said I could last month, but I really can't anymore. I would much rather somebody be honest than kind of kick the can down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of questions here in the chat. And so getting more to the volunteer management side of things. And so just, working with people as opposed to trying to create partnerships. This question is, how is volunteer management handled by the Main Street organization in Warrensburg? Do you have any programs?
That is that's always a tough nut to crack, right? How do you manage all these people? And we aren't perfect in that management. I will say we are a little bit unique in our community, because we do have that military base and that college. So we have a lot of people coming in and out of our community, living here for a couple of years and then moving out. So there has definitely been times where we've had great kind of key people, leadership positions that can help us kind of find those volunteers, and then those people move out, and then we kind of got to start all over. So I would say Warrensburg has created a private Facebook group. Sometimes those are effective to get people to volunteer, and you just throw your volunteer stuff out there. We do have a kind of a loose database as far as here's kind of the point people at X and Y organization, whether it's your National Honor Society at the high school, or the volunteer coordinator at, X organization. So we kind of have that loosely.
Mm-hmm.
We rely on our board to kind of reach out to their circle of people for volunteers. It is kind of a tough nut to crack, because your volunteer needs kind of ebb and flow as well. And sometimes people are really engaged. We've literally had volunteers that are so engaged, we nominate them for awards, and then we don't see them for like 2 years, So you just kind of have to, whether you create a spreadsheet or whether it's in each individual work plan, here's the people we used. We kind of do it both ways, but it's always going to be a hard thing, because as people's lives change, their volunteer commitment's going to change as well.
The next question is, you talked a little bit about this during the presentation, obviously, with some of your partnerships and how you engage various organizations. So what is the best way to reach out to businesses, groups, et cetera, in your community that are outside of the downtown? What's the benefit for them?
Right. So once you kind of have your plan, that's the easiest way. And I am a person who wants to brainstorm with people. So my approach was literally to call them and be like, we want to partner with you, or we have this idea of how we can work together. Let's sit down, whether it's coffee or come to my office. Like I said, that's the opportunity right there to educate them. This is why we think you would be a great partner. This is what, everybody that works for you lives in this community. You have this great opportunity to come alongside us who, can really help you market, promote, like whatever it is that you're trying to get accomplished. You just have to sit down and talk with them. Like I said, everybody in your community that lives in your community wants to have a great community. They all want to live someplace they love. That's why you're in such a unique position to be like, hey, partner with us, walk beside us, and we can really build a great fabric of our community. And as long as you're giving them that appreciation, that thanks, and as many forms as you possibly can do it, then they're going to be sold. And as long as you deliver, that's the other thing. If you say you're going to do X, Y, or Z, then you have to communicate with them. Even if it's borrowing something of theirs, you have to communicate with them when it's being picked up, when it's being dropped off, all that kind of stuff, or whether it's financial or whatever it is. Communication is big, talking to them face to face, and really just talking to them about how you want the community to be great. And you think this would be great for the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and once you kind of sit down and have all those initial conversations, it's way easier then to just email somebody and be like, hey, this is year 2 or whatever. You don't necessarily have to sit down with them every year. But like another example is our prom parade. Part of the reason it was so successful is we sat down with groups of students multiple times during that planning phase that first year, and multiple groups of students, and said, this is for you guys. Mm-hmm. If you're not going to show up, this event will never happen. And so because of those conversations that first year, we still do that to this day, but it's not to the same level. We don't engage as many students as we did.
All right.
So once you kind of build that foundation through talking with them and collaborating with them, and they see that you're going to follow through and that you're going to appreciate their contribution, then they're going to start reaching out to you, or you can just pick up a phone and call them, and it's going to be a lot easier the second time.
Yeah, it makes a difference to establish that relationship, see what their priorities are, and try to, I can say sometimes puzzle piece it together, but help piece together what that relationship looks like. As Jill said, I want a better community. We sometimes do it in different ways, but it's being able to find what that overlap is.
Right. And sometimes, especially when you're talking about industries, sometimes it's just the overlap is they want their employees to be happy when they're outside of work, and the work that Main Street does makes them happy. You're not only putting on community events, but you are supporting and educating and fostering these small business owners to have unique, interesting things provided in your community.
Yep, absolutely. This next one is there anything official that you do to show the partnership, like any forms, recognition? Does it depend on what that looks like? Yeah, go ahead.
So we have both kind of the financial side. So it sounds like that's maybe a little bit what you're asking on. So we have a sponsorship packet that we go around the staff, which could be your board president if you don't have staff. We do it in January because that's when our fiscal year starts. And it's a whole kind of little booklet about all the things that we have sponsors for and what our different levels are. And, we go around to the whatever 10 or 12 or 15 businesses or organizations that have helped us in the past. And of course, we keep a spreadsheet and all that stuff to see who's paid and who's committed and what level they're at. And then we also have a program called Partnership. Some people call it Investors. We do that in the fall, and it's board driven. That's also a financial piece, and that's where they just kind of go out to our downtown businesses, to other businesses in our community, to friends, family, whatever, and they say, if you love what you are seeing happening downtown and through the main street, can you commit a financial? And that can be anywhere from $10 to $500, whatever they want to commit. That's a board-driven activity. We also have a pamphlet for that. We obviously keep a spreadsheet of who's committed and who's asking and all that kind of stuff, and if thank yous have been sent. And then on the backside to both of those, obviously, if you're a sponsor, you're getting that recognition of logos and tickets and stuff on posters and mentioned on the radio and all the stuff that goes with the sponsorship. But for our partners, we do try to keep a list on our social media page, and we tell them all this as we're asking for funds. This is what you're not going to get your logo on a poster, but we're going to give some shout outs a couple of times a year on our social media to all of our partners, and we're going to have you listed on our website for thank you and appreciation. Mm-hmm. And then as far as recognition, we've done a lot of things over the years. One of those slides we did a yearly volunteer appreciation pizza party, and we bought T-shirts in the past, and we do shout outs on social media for volunteers. And then obviously we do a yearly award banquet, and that's an opportunity to kind of highlight those high level volunteers that have really put in a lot of work throughout your organization for the whole year. So I hope that's what they were asking.
Yeah. Well, I think even if that's how I would interpret it, but even if it's like an agreement with like a partnership, I don't really think I've ever seen something like that isn't financial in nature, because it's more just a relationship and a conversation back and forth. How can I help you and you help me with the missions of our organization, and how do we again become a better community? And so I've never seen a formal agreement with something like that. I'm sure there are cases with that. And so if anybody has those, you can put them in the chat here.
Yeah. Well, and I know some people have like a form that their volunteers fill out. And I guess it depends how risk averse your organization is and your community is. If you find that that's kind of the standard, there's lots of forms out there that you can just look up and they kind of fill it out. We don't do that. But like I said, as far as the backside, we just try to recognize our volunteers left, right, and center. Like, anytime we can recognize them, we really try to do that because people like that. A little thank you handwritten is great as well if you have that ability and capacity, but putting their picture on social media and saying, look at this group that came down and helped us out is sometimes, the bank that came down and cleaned up for 2 hours. That's sometimes more recognition and more important.
Mm-hmm. And then there's two more, and I'll answer the first one, but I'll end on this last one. Like I said, if you have any additional questions, make sure to email me, and we'll make sure to include Jill in that response as well. Actually, a couple more. So there was one question that talked about attending the historic tax credit workshop, and so I'm not sure if that's related to the workshop that the deep dive that I had talked about, which anybody can attend. Or if it's the State District Preservation Office, those are open for attendance. So you don't have to be specifically working on a historic tax credit project to attend that. The second one is mentioned that there's a lot of marijuana dispensaries in the community, and so handling how to become a sponsor. I know there was an example in Lee's Summit where they talked about it as an organization and didn't necessarily feel that it was within their mission and to some of the federal regulations that came with that, with the banking, that they decided not to actually pursue that because they can't be FDIC insured, like they can't keep their money in a bank because it's still not something that's legal on the federal level. So I think as an organization, that's a discussion to have there. It is a fine line, as you mentioned, but that's why they decided to go away from it, is because it's still not legal federally. But I'm going to end on this last one for you. So do you have any volunteers that you do background checks on, photo releases, anything like that that you use?
No, we don't generally do background checks on volunteers. Everything we do is out in the public. We're not having like one-on-one sessions with people. Like, we don't do background checks. Like I said, I feel like some of, like in photo releases, we also don't do photo releases. Obviously, when you work with your school district, you're going to ask that question. Are there any students that pictures cannot be in these photos? And they're going to let you know, and then you can fuzz them out. Or usually when we take groups of pictures of students that you saw on this slide, they just won't have the students be in the pictures usually. But we don't do photo releases. I know some organizations do that. Like I said, to me, that's more if your organization community is really risk averse and you've kind of had issues with that in the past, then absolutely dot your I's, cross your T's, make sure you have it all. I mean, I know that we've had some volunteer photographers that we've used that they have asked permission just for their because we're using their photos, they're submitting their photos to us. So I know that they have asked for them, but we generally do not do that.
Okay. Thank you. And I will, Lisa, I just saw your question there, so I wrote it down too. I'll email you separately about insurance for volunteers and what we recommend there. So I just wrote that down. But I wanted to end with actually a couple of your former coworkers. So Jamie said that they're bringing Volunteer Bash back again this year. And then Julie Turnipseed said, good job. And so with that, Jill, thank you. This is a wealth of knowledge, and thank you all for your questions and everything in the chat and interacting today. Like I said, this will be available on our YouTube page coming up probably in the next week or so. And so be looking for that. And just everyone have a great day. And thank you. Bye.